Good morning. We're glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV, the premier morning show in the land. Our socials are active on Twitter, Facebook, and of course we are streaming live on YouTube. You can be part of the conversation by following the hashtag Morning at NTV. Mine at Twitter is at Chris Higenyi. You can be part of some of the issues that I share and of course help me be able to do this job better by making sure that those issues within your community or your settings that you think are important and critical are shared in a very, very timely manner. Now, as we speak, a conference is ongoing at Munyonyo. It is the African Peer Review Mechanism Youth Symposium at the Commonwealth Resort in Munyonyo. It is the third of its kind and is being held here, of course, on the backdrop of the fact that the economic hardships are affecting youth at unprecedented levels. Many are unable to meet the cost of living as a result of the fact that they do not have jobs, and unemployment is one of the issues that are being talked about at that particular conference that has brought together youth from across the continent to debate, to also discuss, and most importantly, benchmark on what's being done in other countries and share those ideas that are transformative. The theme of this particular conference is, I'll just read it here for you, repositioning the youth agenda for a transformative continent. Repositioning the youth agenda for a transformative continent. That's a very poignant theme. Of course, the fact that many times youth have been told that you are the future leaders. For more than 3 decades now, those who were told in 1996 and the year 2000 or thereabouts are now effectively older men and women. Are they in the mantle of leadership? Are they forming some of the critical legislations that we see? Well, somebody could say they are, but how effective is that being done? President Yoweri Museveni, while opening the conference, told youth to create wealth and sustain it through market integration. Now, the youth agenda there, of course, being premised on the mission of an African youth. If you do not want to be like people in Central America, you start creating wealth here and talk about creating a framework to grow it sustainably. The answer to that is market integration, according to the president. Well, joining me for the discussion to see exactly how transformative youth agenda is on the continent is the head of institutions at the National Unity Platform, Mr. David Musiri. A very warm welcome to the program.
Good morning, Chris.
How are you doing?
I'm certainly good, though hiccups there and there.
Hiccups there and there.
Yes.
All right. The fact that not a few, that's an understatement. The fact that a gathering is in Kampala and it's bringing together youth from across the continent, I would expect you to be a little bit more upbeat and that you are following these deliberations, are you?
Yes, I am. Of course, all of us as youth, we must be following what is taking up in our country. This symposium that started yesterday, one, it was hosted in Chad and was also hosted in Kenya. Unlike Uganda, where it is hosted this time around. And for me as a soccer fan, first of all, I do not see Uganda qualify, that qualifier that qualifies Uganda to host such symposiums. I don't see it because, one, we do not even have the mandate. I don't want to say that we do not have to deliberate on how youth are supposed to be anchored in business. For example, one of the key notes, the key points that the president was talking about is market integration. But as I was saying, as a soccer fan, why we do not qualify to host, let's say, African Cup is because of the qualifiers that we lack. One, for instance, for us to have, let's say, African Cup, we must have these stadiums, and we lack that as a facility.
The infrastructure.
Apart from Namori Stadium and the one of recent of Vipers, we really don't qualify. And why I would say for us we do not even have the mandate to speak about market integration, because I believe it should start with us. If General Museveni is to inspire youth to go into what we call a market integration. It should start with us. For example, here foreigners are prioritized. It is public knowledge, public information that foreigners in this country called Uganda are prioritized. For instance, for a native to start business, and of which we have a history. We have got now a preamble of businesses that actually die at birth. You find someone starts a business today as a Ugandan, and it will not meet its birthday. Now, with these foreigners, for instance, someone can start business here, even if they come with $10,000. But for us, a Ugandan, for you to be able to start business, you need around $50,000 for you. But the criteria on which these foreigners are hunkered into business here in Uganda, for instance, that if I started a business, I, David, and you, Chris, maybe let's say David is a Ugandan and Chris, you are a Kenyan, and you want to start the same business here in Uganda, for example, even if we talk about the East African market integration, I am not favored. A Ugandan is not favored because you'll be given tax holidays, you know this. You'll be given a lot of incentives from the government that...
Okay. That is, you seem to be very, I don't know how to bring this up, but I need us to first and foremost narrow this down to the repositioning of youth and the challenges that the youth are facing right now. Business is very integral, and of course many youth are involved in business, and setting up itself is a problem. But in light of this particular conference, you spoke about the fact that we do not qualify to hold this conference. What do you mean?
Yeah, just because some of the things maybe we may not have the criteria. One of the challenges that we have as Ugandans, certain things happen without us knowing how do we qualify to have a symposium, for example, at Munyonyo. I would not want to say that it is there illegally, but how did we qualify over African nations? How do we come to host in a country whereby the youth are abused?
You are questioning why Uganda was selected to host this particular conference.
Yes.
Why do you think Uganda didn't deserve to host this conference?
Because we are in a country, as much as we are talking about repositioning the youth, but we are in a country whereby being a youth, it is a crime. That is, I have just been in Markshan Bay, New Zealand. I want to let you know, Chris, that...
What do you mean you've just been in Markshan Bay as a prisoner? You went to see somebody?
No, I am an ex-prisoner.
You're an ex-prisoner?
Yes,
okay.
In New Zealand. But why we were thrown into jail is because we came up and we wanted to take a petition.
You were an inmate?
Yes.
Not a prisoner. Were you convicted for?
No.
Okay, you are an inmate.
Yes. We came out and wrote a petition to Parliament. And we were just a few students around, and we wanted to submit our petition to Parliament. And before you know, we were brutally arrested and thrown to jail. But that, as if that is not enough, when you reach, when you see the inmates, most of them are youth, and they would tell you clearly that they do not have any, they have not committed any crime for them to be in jail. So, for example, that's why I would say that we are in a country that being a youth, it is a crime. And you can be arrested, thrown to jail. As we speak now, hawkers, being a hawker, the word hawker, it is also a crime. Omutembei. It is also a crime. Now, that's why I was imagining which qualifiers.
But to peddle that narrative that we do not qualify to host conferences that are aimed at repositioning the youth agenda is a bit a non-starter, especially for an opposition political party. You speak as the head of institutions for the National Unity Platform. At what point should we see political activism shelved for transformational politics?
Yes, on that very point, I would think if why I so much I'm stuck on the qualifiers, because we must have a criteria. If we are the National Unity Platform, and as you said now, as NTV has invited me to speak about the symposium, I want to let you know that we would be participants. This symposium
in other words,
is in our country, Uganda.
You are aggrieved that the National Unity Platform has not been part and parcel of the conference, or even any of your members invited as youth. Is that so?
Because I believe this is Uganda, it is in our country, we are the hosts. Maybe we would, don't you think, Chris, that we have something also to submit in the same? Is it if it was NRM Symposium Africa, that would be understood?
That could be understandable.
Yes.
But
if it is African and we are the host, maybe you want to tell us that we are no longer also Ugandans in this country.
Interesting.
That being in opposition, it is also a crime that we cannot contribute to the building of the country. And you well know that, Chris, NUP as a party is the most populated. And the numbers of the youth are overwhelming, because we are accepted and welcomed by the Ugandans who are below 35 years.
Now, okay, that is a bit debatable, because there is the concept of fans and supporters. Then you have sympathizers. Many times in Africa, we seem to bangle that up. The supporters are people who are registered as members of the party and are involved in party activity at different levels. Fans are those that have the euphoria that comes with a particular wave. And now the sympathizers are those who could come in at any one time and maybe agree with what your goals and what you do is, but are not necessarily actively involved in the pursuance or the pursuit of that. So the National Unity Platform, in saying you hold the greater population in terms of popularity, could be a bit of a misconstrued narrative that you are peddling. Shouldn't you be looking at more specific aspects so that it can inform how you shape opinion, but most importantly, your governance direction rather?
Yes, I believe you know, Chris, that over 78% of Ugandans
are youth. Yes.
And I also know that you know that 70% of the NUP structures is made of youth. 70%, which maybe I would not clarify here on TV or national.
Why
TV.
wouldn't you?
But I would think if we go back to the symposium, I think it could be inclusive in nature. For us as NUP, one of our core values is inclusiveness. And number two is about integrity, because if you lack or you miss out on the two, I do not believe. That's why we can start querying. How did that happen? How does it happen? But leaving that, because it is happening, and we cannot keep on grumbling every time that we were left out, we were not invited. We know this country is, we have a dictator in the house that has taken this country hostage. And
I'm glad you're more optimistic about the fact that even when the National Unity Platform was left out in terms of invitation for your delegates to attend, you're able to look forward. Now let's look forward, especially the fact that we are unable to speak to the the chairperson rather of the National Youth Council, Mr. Jacob Eyeru, who was due to make it, but unfortunately has not been able. He would, for example, be able to help us understand why the organizers of the African Peer Review Mechanism Symposium for the Youth did not include, allegedly, the National Unity Platform. There was a time we spoke to officials who were organizing, and we were told that the National Youth Council had reached out to many of the political parties, and of course the delegation or the invites had been sent. I'm yet to know, and of course I'll be pressing hard so that this explanation is given unto us. But now that you have the opportunity
Yes.
on Morning at NTV. NTV is glad to amplify the fact that you have alternative policies that you might have wanted to share at the APRM that could be benchmarks for some youth in other countries to take that on. Let's now dig deep and speak about these policy alternatives that put youth in a position where they can take on the mantle of leadership, economic transformation, businesses, etc.
Yes, one of the key point that was discussed that I had, I have been viewing on Twitter, and I thank NTV for inviting me and for giving us this honest time to also be part of the symposium from studio. One of the key point that was discussed is about education system.
Education system, yeah.
And we cannot have youth without speaking about education. And we believe, I for one, as an activist, I believe in students' freedoms. I believe in the youth freedoms. But much importantly is about how the impasse that we have gotten in this country, in the education system. More, I would talk about the UNATO, that wherever they are going through. That's why I have talked about the criteria. Sometimes we wonder how, for example, how the First Lady would reach, which criteria they use to award 4 million to the science teachers. And this has caused an impasse, and we know that in anything, for anything to have a solution in Uganda, someone has to meet the president. But for us as NUP...
Is that wrong? The president is the head of state?
But you find it is, I would say it is also a syndicate that we have seen over time, that for you to have any solution. Now, I would want to ask you, now, why would we have ministers, for example? For us, we believe that even for us to have 80 ministers in this country, as small as it is, we are only making 45 million Ugandans, and yet US has over, I think, 15 or 18 ministers, but populated than we are. I think it is wrong. And for us as NUP, that is why we had an alternative. That for us, we wanted even actually, if you read our manifesto, that we wanted to elevate these teachers, because it is not the first of that kind. We want to go back to the preambles of Uganda, that during Amini's regime, I think the teachers were the most happiest in this, above all the civil servants in this country. When we talk about countries like Rwanda, if we talk about disintegration and whatsoever, the way teachers are being treated in Rwanda, I have seen colleagues leaving this country, leaving Uganda to go and have jobs in Rwanda, because
you seem to speak from a point of knowledge. Can you substantiate the claim that teachers, especially in Rwanda, are, as you put it, happier than all other civil servants?
Yes, because I have colleagues. I am talking at an exposed view. That I have colleagues that have gone to Rwanda and they are well taught, they are well facilitated. Their salaries, their take home is more than, I think it is 4 times the one of Uganda.
Times. All right, that debate is, of course, a lot is still out on the jury. The jury is still out on that, no doubt about that. But let's keep it to the symposium and how youth are being repositioned. In your view, as the head of institutions and the youth agenda within the National Unity Platform, across the continent, when you look at the trajectory of economic development from Nigeria to South Africa to Somalia, Egypt and Uganda, where do you see the most opportunities for youth, and how effectively can the youth be put in motion to first and foremost be ready and capture these opportunities?
Yeah, I don't want to first talk about Kenya, Nigeria, or I want to start it from home. That's why I said it was wrong for us to think that it can happen elsewhere without happening here in Uganda. For example, we have all seen very many numbers of youth leaving our country to go for white-collar jobs. Some are enslaving themselves in a dot-com world in such a moment that we have reached to people leaving their country to go to either, let's say, Abu Dhabi, or, but even how other countries are handling the same situation is because I don't want to seem and to be on the national TV like here and say it is only Ugandans that are going to look for white-collar jobs. Yeah. All other countries are actually, their youth are moving to other countries. But for example, how the Minister of Labor is handling the youths that are going to Abu Dhabi, the youths that are going to Qatar is quite different, because I would tell you that there are criteria and they are set rules for other countries. For example, I have two colleagues. One is coming from Kenya and is working in Abu Dhabi, and we have a colleague who came from Uganda and is working in Abu Dhabi, doing the same job but paid differently. One is paid underpaid, the other one is paid well. And that starts from here. That means it is intentional for us as a country to handle the youths the way they are being handled. That's why I would not want to see us blowing our own trumpet in the whole of Africa, saying that it is well at home, it is well here, and we are repositioning the youth, because this has always been a culture that every time the old men, for example, the old man, General Museveni, has always promised us heaven and earth, that you, the youth, for tomorrow, we are preparing you for this, we are going to give you this. But certainly, if I can quote a precedent that happened here in Uganda, I think you remember when one of the Nigerian youth with a talent, a musician, who ended up in jail in Chitaria, if you remember well. I remember that story. And it was because of too much pressure that was exerted to the embassy of Uganda that they were reproduced so quickly. Now we have just had an incident in Congo, whereby our troops went and invaded that country, and still they are affecting the youth.
It wasn't an invasion, it is an operation, a military operation that was by the government in Kinshasa.
But which operation was not legal, because you know, Chris, that they had to go through parliament, which they never did, and decided to go to Congo. And by the time, you know, the youths of Congo, it is still about the youth. And I am sure the youth of Congo are not part of this symposium because they are there actually holding peaceful demonstrations.
All right, you bring out something that is very pertinent, the fact that there's been some demonstrations in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo with regard to operations of other countries there, and also the claim that the youth from Congo might not be part of the symposium. I highly doubt that is not the case. Now, Jackson Onyango, our reporter, covered that particular story. I'll tell my producer to quickly organize for me the story by Jackson Onyango so that we can have a very perfect picture of what is happening at the symposium in terms of the delegates who were invited, but also, most importantly, the discussion and how it is being shaped. As that is being worked on, allow me ask you a question about President Yoweri Museveni's, I know at the end of the day you've been very critical of President Yoweri Museveni, first as an individual, but again as a party. However, would you say President Yoweri Museveni has not given the youth an opportunity to be able to transform themselves? There are so many initiatives that have been rolled out. We have the parish development model right now that targets the grassroots person, and the youth are very much at the grassroots level, in the villages, in the peri-urban centers, and this money is being rolled out in that particular format. The National Unity Platform that you say has the most youth in the country is going to gain most from this if the youth are on board. Have you sensitized your youth to be able to help government transform them?
First of all, Chris, I want to put this at your table that this is not the first time that we are having such schemes. And for me, sure, I have seen these schemes that the government brings these schemes to benefit a few of them, and which do not deliver to what is expected. Because, for example, I think you heard of Prosperity for All. And then before we knew, we went to NADS. Before we knew, we came, of recent there was a scheme that was brought by government that it was in Kiswahili. I want to recall that before we come to the parish model, there was a scheme when we went to the polls, and before it is investigated, we are seeing the parish model. For example, now I want to let you know that
very quickly.
I want to let you know that the country has sucked this country, its natives, economically well. That maybe they think that maybe they can return a few peanuts to a few individuals. For example, if you want to give 10 to 100 million...
That's a good point that you're going to have to expound on a little bit later. Let's go for a break right now around about this time so that we can be able to transition effectively when we return and continue this discussion where we are looking at opportunities for continental youth and where exactly they lie in light of the ongoing third African peer review mechanism for youth symposium at the Commonwealth Resort in Munyonyo. Welcome back. We're glad you're still with us. If you're just joining us, welcome on board. It's morning at NTV and I'm Chris. Again, we are discussing the third peer review mechanism symposium for youth that is currently underway at the Commonwealth Resort Hotel in Munyonyo. The president, that is Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, opened the gathering yesterday with a message to youth of unity and market integration. Of course, that is anchored on the fact that a lot of interventions that are being rolled out by the government here and of course across the region that are aimed at making the youth sustainable in terms of the economic activities that they undertake. On the show this morning, we have the head of institutions at the National Unity Platform, David Musiri, who apparently says the National Unity Platform was not invited to this particular symposium. But despite the fact that they weren't invited, Mr. Musiri has what he says are youth initiatives that can be rolled out to ensure that youth get to where they want to be, but most importantly, to be the leaders that they were promised. Now, yesterday, Jackson Onyango covered that for us. Let's take a look at exactly how things went on.
There's a lot of things that are happening across the continent.
The youth drawn from across the African continent are convened at the historic Munyonyo Commonwealth Resort along the shores of Lake Victoria. They will, in the course of 5 days, share ideas on promotion of good governance, the role of youth in technology transfer, and unemployment solutions.
Over 70% of the population in Africa is under the age of 30. Whereas this creates an opportunity because of the potential demographic dividend from abundant labor force and the future demand for goods and services. It creates a challenge and a specter of missing the demographic dividend if the anticipated youth bulge is not well planned.
Continue to advocate that young people must be seen, they must be heard and included in every process that concerns their future and particularly their needs.
It is hosted under the African Peer Review Mechanism Youth Symposium, an initiative of the African Union and the third of the kind to be hosted, the previous having been in Chad and Kenya. The National Resistance Movement government highlighted youth representation in Parliament, skilling through vocational trainings, and the Youth Livelihood Program as special interventions geared to support the group.
Your Excellency, repositioning the youth also means providing opportunities for improving livelihoods and jobs so that the young people can be independent and productive. In Uganda, Your Excellency, under your able leadership, Mr. President, the youth have always occupied a central place in our programs.
President Museveni presided over the opening ceremony, challenging the youth to engage in productivity. However, he insisted on the need for security and peaceful coexistence among the states to preserve their market.
Once the market is integrated, if I produce a good here in Uganda or a service, and it is consumed by anybody who wants to do so within the population of Africa now, which is now 1.6 billion a year, there's no way you can fail to grow, the business to grow.
The third African peer review mechanism, which coincides with the 20th anniversary of the African Union, is under the theme Repositioning the Youth for a Transformative Continent.
Jackson Onyango reporting there on the very first day of the African Peer Review Mechanism Symposium for the Youth. Mr. David Musiri, do you agree with the President? He says market integration, the youth cannot fail to make it if they adopt that kind of thinking. Do you agree with him?
No,
you don't.
Because it, as I said, literally it has to start with us and with him. He's not interested in the youth of Uganda integrating in the business. I want to speak that as a student of business, as someone who did Bachelor of Commerce, because I know when we say that 90% of businesses that start today die at birth, you know what we are talking about. So surely, Chris, I basically believe that whatever he's talking about would be right if it is done in good faith. If it is really done in good faith, it would be good. Why not? Why not integrate? Surely, it is understandable.
What would you say are the 4 areas that youth can engage in to effectively transform?
One, for us as NUP, we basically believe that any country, for any country and to benefit its youth, should start with prioritizing education.
Education, 1.
Education is key. 2? I wanted to show you...
No, we don't have a lot of time. Yes. I want you to just outline them. 2?
Yes, agriculture.
Agriculture
is one of the key areas that we want to focus, to put our focus on.
3?
So much. 3, security, because the country cannot prosper without security.
All right.
The silent genocide, like you are hearing in Kalamoja region, that of course makes everything to be scanted.
And 4?
And 4, it is about the foreign policy. We must have a straight foreign policy for this country. That if the youth wants to go and for a white-collar job, for example, in the Arab Emirate areas, those countries, how do we set the minimum wage? At least we must set the minimum wage for those people, that they should not earn less than
some. Okay, that's great. That's a conversation, of course, we shall have an opportunity to hammer out on another day. David Musiri, the head of institutions at the Opposition National Unity Platform there, sharing his insights on the ongoing African Peer Review Mechanism Youth Symposium at the Commonwealth Resort Munyonyo, and of course registering the dismay, the fact that the party was not invited. That does it for this segment of the Morning at NTV show. There's a lot of discussion coming up, aspects of drug abuse and mental health, one of the leading challenges that society is grappling with. Stay with us.